Hello everyone, what's going on? My name is Luther. I'm a young filmmaker. I make documentary films, and I'm also an adventurer, a vegan, overall healthy liver, and super happy. But the most important thing is that I make YouTube videos, films, and documentaries. And the reason you are here is because you want to learn about the Panasonic Lumix 12 to 35mm lens. It's a Mark II, and maybe you want to learn a bit more about it. Maybe you're interested in buying it and you want to make up your mind. I'm here to answer all the questions you have and go through the whole list of things, everything technical I'm going to go through today. So what do you say we go on an adventure and check out the lens? Let's go. Okay, so the first thing to note is that I've been using this camera, the Lumix G85, the body, for about 3 months. But I've been using this lens, the 12 to 35 Mark II, for pretty much a whole month. And I've learned a lot about it, its quirks, its weird aspects, its brilliant aspects, and I'm going to talk about those today. Also, one more bit of context before we get into the proper review. Although I'm 15 years old, that does not hinder me the ability to learn filmmaking and produce films. Just because I'm young and I'm not an adult doesn't mean I can't produce content that is as good as an adult. So just because I'm a kid, don't think, oh, I won't trust this kid because he's really young and he'll know nothing about filmmaking. I actually know quite a bit, and I would consider myself still learning, but pretty good. And I have a lot of knowledge, so please stick with me, and you'll learn a lot. Alright, so let's go through the very basics. Let's go through why someone who's interested in film and photography and is using a Lumix Panasonic camera, why might they buy this lens? Well, firstly, it's pretty wide. It's 24mm equivalent on a full frame, so it's a pretty wide shot. You can get nice landscapes, you can film yourself handheld, pretty good. It's also got the medium range. It's the equivalent of a 70mm on a full frame, so 35mm. It's a nice zoom range. It's also got a constant aperture, so it's always going to stay at f2.8 if you want it to be the fastest lens aperture that you can get. It's then got image stabilization built into the lens, and it works with the body, with the IBIS, in-body stabilization of your camera, so they work together and make a super stable shot. Some people are super into that. If you're doing film, that would be super important for you. Adventure and outdoor filmmakers and photographers would be super interested in this because it is weather sealed. So you can go out in the elements. You can go out when it's raining right now. You can go out in the desert when it's dusty. You can go out in snow. And rest assured that your camera will not get damaged from any weather or the elements getting into the camera. And then lastly, it has autofocus. I'm using it right now to film myself. Pretty useful if you're doing photography, and pretty useful if you're filming yourself for films. Okay, so those are the basics. Those are sort of the things that might attract a person at first glances to purchase this lens. But let's jump deeper into this lens. Let's look at the technical aspects, what I've found by just using it out in the field, vlogging, filmmaking, documentary making, and really find out if this lens is worth it for you. So this lens is, in my opinion, pretty much a prime lens in a zoom lens package. So you can zoom with this lens, but it is very much like a prime lens. And this is what you're going to expect. This is a professional lens. It's from the Pro line in the Panasonic line of cameras and lenses. So you're going to pay a lot of money for this lens, so you're expecting some very good features. Okay, before I talk about the image, before I talk about all the little tiny aspects of the lens, I want to show you the lens itself. Whoa, right, so this is the lens itself, the little package that it is in. Take the lens hood off, and it's even smaller. So one of the awesome features that comes with having a micro four thirds camera system, in my opinion, is that you get a lot of the awesome benefits of a high quality camera, but everything is in such a small tight package. If you went and looked at a 12 to 35 millimeter on a full frame camera or an APS-C type sensor camera, the 12 to 35 lens would be pretty big. I mean, it'd be that big for the professional line. It would be huge, heavy to carry in your camera bag, especially out filming docs and adventure docs and traveling. And that is why the micro four thirds system is so good for people that will be traveling with their cameras. This lens is no exception to the trend. This lens is super small. Oh, there's a mosquito on there. Gee. This lens is great for travel. I mean, it packs a punch with weight, but it is super small, and that is what I love about this. I could film a whole documentary series with just this lens. Oh yeah, it would be an awesome documentary. You get nice wide shots, beautiful landscapes, perfect for interviews if you're using wide, awesome for movement with your camera. But then you get these medium shots with it zoomed up to 35 millimeters. You get these medium shots, beautiful for interviews, brilliant for close-ups. It pretty much does everything you would want. As I said prior, this is weather sealed. If you open this up, you can see a rubber seal on there, so that is going to clip into the camera itself, its native mount, and it will be weather sealed, protecting your camera. Cool, awesome feature. I have in fact tested this. I have been out on the beaches with really small grains of sand. No sand has gotten inside. Dust, rain is raining right now. Everything. This lens, its weather seal is not a lie. It does its job, and it's something that you come to love. Zooming on this camera is super smooth, something I really like because a lot of the time I do reframe my shots, and I keep that in the film, and so I can easily zoom. It's a nice smooth motion, really awesome. What you would expect from a professional lens, so no problems there. However, the focus is horrible. It's focused by wire, so that means it's getting an electric signal as you turn this, sending a signal to the camera to then change the focus, and therefore it's not actually changing the elements physically with this focus ring, and therefore the focus isn't smooth. It will speed up at some times, it will slow down, even though I have a constant turning of the focus ring. Manual focus therefore is pretty redundant. One thing that really annoyed me when I got this lens, because I really relied on manual focus, but now I can't really use it just because it's not reliable. And lastly, about the physical aspects of this lens, is that it has a nano surface coating, which is pretty much the coating of the glass that is extremely low reflectance, and so you're going to have reduced flares, sun flares, reduced ghosting effects, and all that sort of stuff that can impact your image. You may want that, you may not, but you can get the flares, sun flares another way, and having this nano surface coating on, super handy, because if you didn't want that flare, you're good. If that flare was there, you can't get rid of it, but you can add it. So yeah, really nice little feature. Obviously all of these things is what you would expect from a professional lens. Back to the proper camera. Alright, so I have talked a lot about professional grade camera. I've talked a lot about the price, so let me quickly touch on that. This cost me, I live in the UK, freezing cold right now, just to let you know. I live in the UK, and this did cost me around £600. Now if you're in the UK, you might realise, how did he get it for £600? It's £800 here in the UK. Well, I got it a lot cheaper by buying it in the USA and then bringing it back over to the United Kingdom. I recently went to the USA for a trip to film a documentary, and you can learn more about it right up there. But I was able to purchase it in the USA, which is a lot cheaper than buying it in the United Kingdom. But yes, this is an expensive lens, and really you should only be looking into this if you need a professional line lens. If you're going to be doing big documentaries, if you're doing photography, if you take it seriously, And if you've been doing it for a while, if you're an intermediate / advanced sort of person, cameraman, and if you're a beginner, I highly encourage you learn your camera with its kit lens, you learn all its features, you learn photography, you learn filmmaking, and don't worry about the gear. Do not worry about the gear. It comes with time as you build up the skills and also the money to purchase this sort of stuff. Alright, on to my opinions. So this lens gives a beautifully sharp image, beautifully sharp. Sharp from the center all the way up to its corners, super sharp. As you can see, if you zoom up and move over, it is a wonderfully sharp image. And this sharpness is due to Panasonic putting a lot of work into making this professional lens, into reducing chromatic aberration, reducing different types of aberration with the lens through its nano surface coating to reduce flares and all that sort of stuff, and also its aspherical lens element design. And this is obviously expected with a professional lens. They're putting a lot of effort and work into making this sharp. People want it to be sharp. If you're taking photos, if you're taking films, making documentaries with this camera, you want to have this sharp image. And that is pretty much the key aspect of this lens. Doesn't mean you can't get sharp images with the kit lens. You can, it's definitely super good. But this is naturally a sharper lens. Look at these trees. They're beautiful in the bokeh. Did you catch it? Did you see what I was trying to do? Well, I'm trying to portray the idea that this lens is a constant aperture. It has the widest, the fastest aperture at f2.8. Pretty wide, pretty good in low light. Not too bad. But even if I zoom up to 35mm, it is still I stumbled over my words. It is still f2.8, and that is super nice, because in a kit lens it usually you'll see, maybe it'll say 14 to 42mm f3 to 4.6 or 5.6, and so what that means is it's f3 at its widest at 12 or 14mm, and when you zoom up it would then change the aperture and therefore make the image darker, and that's not what you want. So with this professional lens, you are going to be able to keep that aperture at f2.8 throughout the zoom range, the focal length. And that allows you to keep the same brightness of the image, the same exposure, without having to compensate with your shutter speed. Pretty useful if you're definitely, as I said, if you reframe your shots. So if in the middle of me talking, filming a video or a documentary, if I zoomed up on myself, it stays the same. I don't have to fiddle with the settings, and it's super useful if you are reframing your shots whilst filming. It is sunset right now. Can't really tell, but it's getting foggy. It's getting colder as the sun is dipping. Misty. It's awesome. I'm adventuring the river. Super fun. But I think we should talk a bit about stabilization, image stabilization with this lens. And the camera working together. Now, it is super nice. As you can see, I'm filming myself right now. Super shaky. I'm on uneven ground. Ugh. I am actually carrying quite a heavy rig, so it is a tiny bit shaky, and I can't keep this completely stable in my own hands. Yet, the image still seems pretty smooth. Yes, there's going to be shakiness. There's going to be handheld features because I am holding it and it's shaking around a bit, but because this lens has image stabilization built in, it also works with the image stabilization in the camera. So the camera has the sensor on almost like an axis gimbal, and it's moving the sensor depending on how the camera is moving. So it's moving around to keep the image stable, and then we also have the lens working with the in-body stabilization, the IBIS, to working together to make a super smooth shot. Beautiful work, beautiful technology. I can pan across, this is all handheld, and it looks so fluid, such a fluid, smooth motion. Yes, I'm shaking a bit, but it is still super smooth, almost like it's on a tripod. I can turn image stabilization off on the lens, and immediately it's a bit shakier. This is just using this stabilization built into my camera. Not all Lumix cameras have this stabilization. Turn it back on. Super smooth. Beautiful technology. Awesome. But by no means should you rely on just the stabilization. You can't be shaking it about and expect it to be super smooth. So if you do get this lens, don't be surprised if you are still getting shaky footage. This still may be shaky because I'm shaking a bit. It is quite a heavy rig. So you've got to utilize the techniques and your filmmaking abilities to get a smooth shot. One of them may be using its wide focal length. It has a 12mm, 24mm equivalent lens. So if you are having this nice wide image, as I'm in right now, you can reduce the amount of shake because obviously it's not as zoomed up, so one small flick isn't a huge movement on the camera. It's nice and wide, you can hardly see the edges moving. Also having the correct form when you are filming. Nice bent knees, moving, flat-footed, trying to get those smooth shots. And it does help with a nice smooth movement. And then obviously post-production, doing the right post-production to get a nice smooth image. Then with the in-body stabilization, with the stabilization on the lens, you're gonna get such a clean image without even the use of a gimbal. Super awesome. It's getting way too cold to be out here with bare hands and fingers. So I'm gonna put some gloves on that I got for Christmas. Thank you so much, Mum and Dad, for these wonderful gloves. Awesome. Oh. I love running down big hills, and it's so much fun. I'm now on this beautiful bridge. The light is fading, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. But I've got one more point that I want to state, and that is about the autofocus. Now the autofocus on this lens is prime. It's so good. It's beautiful. It took me a while to get the hang of it. I've never used autofocus pretty much. I rarely used it because it was pretty much redundant on previous cameras. But this camera and the system it has with this lens also just creates such a smooth autofocus. Once you get the hang of it, once you choose the right options, the right settings, it's beautiful. Always keeps you in focus. If it does a bit of tracking, maybe for a few seconds, and then it's back onto it, back onto your face. Beautiful, really, really useful. Now using it all the time since manual focus is pretty poor. That may be a deal breaker for you, but who knows. That is pretty much it for this review. I would just like to say though, this lens is only for someone who really, really needs a prime sort of lens that has the options of zooming in. It's very much like a prime lens, but is also a zoom lens. If you really need that, this lens is for you. If you really need autofocus, this lens is for you. If you need that stabilization, this lens is for you. And if you want this wide field of view, this lens is for you. If you want all those things, this lens is perfect. But with modern day technology coming in all the time, there's the pro line, the professional gear is now being so much more accessible, so much cheaper, so much more affordable in this modern day. You can get so many good lenses for Micro Four Thirds, for any camera, for really cheap. And does not mean you have to spend crazy amounts of money to get results. Now, if you are on a budget and you definitely do not have the money to purchase this lens, I'd recommend saving up because it's a brilliant lens. But if you need a nice wide-angle lens, I'd totally recommend the 7 Artisans 7.5mm f2.8 lens. And there is an absolutely extraordinary review on this lens that I'll link right now on an iCard. It is made by my buddy Aidan Robbins. He is an incredible filmmaker, very much a budget and frugal filmmaker. Super incredible. Link is in the description everywhere. You can check it out. That is it from me here in Cornwall, UK. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay happy, stay humble, and be vegan. Goodbye. This is crazy.